algorithm section. So this describes exactly how users can sort their posts in the Ezira.io interface and mobile interface. And we'll just find it through here. Here we are. Okay, so essentially the Ezira sorting algorithm has basically 8 parameters. So these are the different numbers that can be customized by users, and in mainstream interfaces, these will be fairly abstracted away. For technical users, they'll be able to customize all these individually with a sliding scale. Basically, there's a number for latency, which affects the relationship of the post with respect to time. The equalization factor, which manages the relationship between pure democracy, which is 1 account, 1 vote, and pure meritocracy, which is 1 Ezira power, 1 vote. Then there'll be scores associated with votes, views, shares, and comments, which weights the relative contribution of each type of engagement to the algorithm. Then there'll be the active time, which manages the balance between the time when the post was made and the time when it was last commented on. And there'll be a random factor used for random shuffling. And there's a fair bit of maths involved, but basically each of the votes, views, shares, and comments are aggregated up and normalized so that they're in units of an average account, so that they can be easily compared with one another. And then they're weighted in terms of the amount of voting power an average user has. And then they are all added together in such a way that they can easily be compared with one another, and that they'll be changed by the same relative amount to a change in its in its variance number. So the view rank, the vote rank, etc. Plus the random factor, they're all in units of an average account. So that is normalized. Then what it does is it takes the time since it was posted and the time since it was last commented on and weights that according to the active time parameter. And then it takes the entire score there and weights that with respect to the latency number. So latency is the most important number that the user will have the most ability or the most interest in changing. So what the latency does is it allows for a sliding continuous scale of change in posts in terms of how long they were made, how long ago they were made. So with a high latency, you'll get posts that have high voting, view, and share and comment scores that are a bit older. And with a low latency, it'll rank posts higher that were made more recently, even if they have a lower score. So some of the problems with Steam and Reddit are that they have discrete sorting algorithms. So you can only pick between hot or new or trending or things like that. And you can't actually change the algorithm. But on Ezira, all of our interfaces will have a sliding scale, so people will be able to adjust on a scale as to how new they want their content to be versus how highly voted it is. So ideally, users will start out with a high latency and they'll see the best content first. And then when that's all been seen, they'll move their latency a bit lower and see newer content that's still highly rated, and move it lower and lower and lower until they get to following content that's been recently created but not highly voted yet. So the ability for users to actually dynamically change that number is going to be key to the user experience of Ezira. So they'll have different options for sorting these with presets if they're not too concerned about actually changing the numbers themselves. But there'll be a lot more sorting options than what you see on Facebook or Reddit or Twitter or any of those mainstream sites. In the mobile interface, in simple mode, this will be very abstracted and it won't be made completely visible to users. This will be happening in the background. Users will be able to choose it in like an options menu, but on the proper full-on desktop client at least, all these numbers will be completely customizable. So there'll be 8 numbers for users to choose from between negative and positive 100 that'll offer billions of different possible combinations for seeing how the content is sorted and choosing what to prioritize in terms of what the user wants to see. So they might want to see things that have been highly voted and highly viewed, but not necessarily highly shared or commented on. Or if you want to see discussion, you might highly rank comments and discount the votes, views, and shares if you just want to see things that have been highly commented on. If you want to see it in a really, really fast-paced mode, you'll change the active time so that it's based on the time it was last commented on, so that every time someone comments on a post, it gets bumped up. So there will be so many different ways to sort content, and each user will have their own preference, that it'll be nigh impossible to actually manipulate a post by adapting it to fit the algorithm, because everybody will be using a different algorithm. So it provides a much smaller attack surface against manipulating content votes to the top, which is very easy to do on Steam at trending, for example. All you have to do is pay for upvote bots, and your comment goes to the top of Steam trending. However, with all these other ways to sort content, it'll be much, much more difficult to actually get a post to be highly rated through a manipulative strategy. You'll have to actually have good content that people are actually engaging with, actually viewing, and it won't simply be depending on one number, and that's the number of upvotes, which Steam it does at the moment. So that's the distribution algorithm there. Having said that, we'll move on to the next topic, and that is the Ezira release and revenue graphics. So recently, the Ezira project has released a series of graphics detailing the release stages, and we'll go through those. So those are on Ezira.io. And as you can see in the preliminary ICO, there's 26 days remaining. And we'll go through the Ezira.io page. And then we get to the Ezira roadmap. So previously this was a small, very primitive diagram that had a few different targets and points and things like that. But now the Ezira roadmap consists of 5 graphics that have very detailed explanations of what exactly goes into each release and what they'll be including, and the expected time frame. So for the Pioneer release, there'll be the Ezira blockchain testnet, which is currently in development, and that'll be soon available on the alpha in its early stages, but that's not the Pioneer release yet. So we'll be building a new Steam chain and connecting it to the prototype, and when the Pioneer release is complete, it'll have all of these things. So it'll have delegated proof of stake, the prototype alpha interface, which we've got at the moment, with a bit more advanced features. It'll have IPFS file storage built into it. You'll be able to create persona accounts, just like you can on the Steam blockchain. You'll be able to access the Test Ezira wallet, which will just be called Ezira, but it will not be the proper Ezira yet, it'll just be Test Ezira. There'll be user-issued assets, a decentralized exchange for exchanging the user-issued assets. There'll be text, blog, and link posts. So we'll be starting off with 3 different types of posts. So a text post will not have a title. It'll just have a body of text, and it will not have... it'll essentially have the body of text, and then it'll render any links that are included as like a link reference. Like you might see on a tweet, for example. It just shows the text and it has a character limit. It'll basically be rendered like a tweet as a text post instead of needing a title and all the other jazz. A blog post will be exactly like what you're familiar with on the Steam blockchain. That won't be changed. It'll have a title and a body, and it'll be included. Every post will be included in one board with an infinite number of tags. and a link post will have a title and a link, and it won't have a body. So link posts don't have a body, they just have a title and a link. And when you click on the title, it'll just take you to the link. So that'll work a little bit like a Reddit style post for those who are familiar. Then there'll be board creation, so people will be able to create boards. There'll be voting on posts, but there won't be content rewards. The content rewards won't be active yet. There'll be sending of test Ezira transactions, sorting posts by preset options. So some of the presets that we just described in the ranking algorithm, that'll be available on the Ezira.io interface. And there will be a blockchain explorer built into the interface, instead of having to go to a separate website. Next up is the silver release, which is the mainnet. So this is the mainnet release. And these two releases, the Pioneer and the Silver release, will have early access for Ezira holders. And then after that, increasing room will be made for new users to access a blockchain account. So I'll go through some of the things that the Silver release has, and that's the full node desktop client, Ezira Power, and activity reward distribution. So that'll be all holders of Ezira and Ezira Power will earn Ezira coin rewards, and the activity reward will be distributed. Then there'll be the Alpha web interface, the mobile app Alpha, and the Genesis block of the Ezira blockchain with the share drop included. There'll be proof of work mining, so there won't be any mining in the testnet. There'll just be delegated proof of stake. Board and feed browsing, content reward distribution, business account creation, product posts. So that product post is going to be another type of post that is rendered to fit all the details of a product into it. There'll be profile account creation, which is going to be a subset of a persona account, but made with a specific naming scheme. So it'll be first name, last name with a number, and it'll be used in the interface to only display the first name, last name. So it'll be a specific pattern that is used in order to get all the different Dave, whatever's, all the different uses of the first name, last name to render just as first name, last name. Then there'll be account connections and private posts visible to those connections and private messaging with those connections. There'll be post sorting customization, so users will be able to change all of the different sorting algorithms that I just described before. There'll be image, video, and audio posts, so those will be posts that are specifically used for an image content. So an image post won't have a title, it'll just have an image and a shorter body. So that'll render something like an Instagram post. A video post will again have a video file, a title, and a description section. And an audio post will have an audio file, a title, and a description section. So those will be created and rendered specifically for those different types of content. And the important reason as to why this content is separated by its type is so that every application can differentiate between what the content is without needing to add its own, essentially, tag stamp onto it, so that different interfaces that use the same content types can render each other's content without needing to check that their tag is included in it. So if there were two different applications that allowed people to upload videos to the Ezira blockchain, and it used a video posting type, they'd be able to display each other's videos without worrying about all the other types of content, and they would not need to include their application name in the tag like they do on Steam at the moment. So for example, if you have DTube, for example, they include the DTube tag so that they only show posts that are made on DTube, but that's a bit of a hack way of doing it. So we'll be having different types of content to make sure that all applications can have consistent standards when they display different types of content. Moving forward, there's event creation, supernode reward, content reward beneficiaries like there is on Steam at the moment. The supernode network will reward IPFS node holders smart coins will be able to be made and collateralized with Ezira coin. That'll work the same way that BitShares smart coins work. There'll be group creation in the 3 different types that I just described before. The marketing, advocacy, and development reward pools will open for voting. And if you would like to be a member of those reward pools, then I would recommend campaigning to the Ezira community for votes to be an Ezira marketer, an advocate, or a developer. There'll be content management systems, so that includes moderators being able to move posts to the deleted section, and for all users to be able to add tags to posts in order to have them potentially filtered from interfaces. Lastly, there'll be Ezira credit issuance, which is used to issue debt against the revenue of the Ezira network by the Ezira main account. Moving on to the gold release, I'll go a bit faster because we're taking a little while. There'll be membership assets. This is where all the revenue streams come in. Membership assets, premium content, post-promotion, marketplace mediation, the account referral revenue distribution, the network revenue distribution system, Ezira stealth creation and transactions, anonymous posting with Ezira stealth content rewards. The mobile app will have NFC-based payments. The community pioneer distribution will take place, rewarding 50 of the top users. Every account will get a multi-currency HD or hierarchically deterministic wallet for the major currencies, similar to a Jax-style wallet, but based off of your Ezira account. So essentially, when you import your Ezira account, you'll be able to directly import all of the other wallets that are associated with the Ezira account and have a stream of wallets being created off of those keys and things like that. There'll be the featured page, the recommended posts in the sidebar, different content types. There'll be full API functionality for integration by third-party developers. Ezira DEX, cryptocurrency gateway assets, so those will be exchange assets that are used and maintained by the Ezira team. In the company of Ezira DEX, it'll be a separate company to run those gateway assets. But those gateway assets will be created for exchanging things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash and BitShares. And there'll be community project funding. So the community account will be accepting funding proposals, and that receives 5% of all issued Ezira coin. The complete mainnet will include the last remaining features. So those are account verification for proving that a profile account is who it says it is. Subscription assets, peer-to-peer lending, marketplace credit lines. The decentralized exchange will have margin trading enabled. And there will be option assets, predictive split assets, liquidity array assets using the Bancor liquidity formula. Community issued assets, so that'll be either groups or boards being able to issue their own asset and distribute them to the content creators within their community. Advanced Ezira DEX orders like stop loss orders and fill or kill orders, all that sort of thing. So anything that you'd see on a high level exchange, highly technical exchange for advanced traders. Things like staggered orders. Things like take gain, or not a take gain, mainly stop loss orders will trigger their smart contract deployment. Recurring payments and live stream posts will be coming in the the platinum release rather. Lastly, in the diamond release, there's no changes to the Ezira blockchain, but this is mostly the ecosystem evolving. So in the last phase of the project, before it starts to be taken over by elected development team members, will be the application of the executive board elections. So there'll be an on-chain election for all the executive board positions. We'll bring in Ezira Pay fiat gateway assets, the Ezira Investment Fund, which will be a Bancor pool of liquidity that holds a stake in Ezira-sponsored businesses. There'll be the founding of these Ezira consortium businesses that are in the business and application case. Then there'll be Ezira credit-funded projects, including mass market outreach, exchange listing campaigns, infrastructure stress testing and penetration testing, and we will work with code auditors to obtain a formal proof of completeness and high assurance of code-based security. We'll release open source automated DEX trading software along the lines of the DEX trading software that has been used on the BitShares blockchain that's been released, called DEXBot, something along those lines. We'll have Ezira Consortium admissions for businesses and white labeling solutions for making an Ezira web application based on a fork of Ezira.io, and an application solution for forking the Ezira mobile wallet for a specific store or a specific board or a specific asset to focus on one community point of interaction. And there'll be another application made for point of sale merchants to be able to accept Ezira payments in any of the Ezira based cryptocurrencies. So that was pretty long, but that's the entire Ezira roadmap, which is now explained over the course of 5 graphics with tentative timelines on a 6-monthly upgrade cycle. So those timelines will certainly change either up or down depending on how fast the Ezira project can fundraise and grow in terms of development team. But that is where it stands at the moment. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about this week is the Ezira revenue graphic. So the Ezira revenue graphic is also now on the website under the investment section. So this is the first thing that new investors will now be seeing, and that is the revenue model graphic, which explains very, very basically the following. It describes the 6 different revenue streams, and they are memberships, promoted posts, decentralized exchange fees, premium content fees, marketplace fees, and lending interest fees. Shows how there are some split outs of these revenue streams before they are ingested by the network. So 15% of memberships goes to Ezira premium partners. 50% of promoted post income goes to the interfaces and the supernodes that facilitate that. Premium content fees get split out to supernodes that facilitate the distribution of encryption keys to actually make sure that that is encrypted and to protect it from arbitrary distribution for free, because it is on IPFS and it does rely on the supernodes to actually enforce the rules of who can get access to those keys. So they have to be incentivized to behave correctly. The marketplace fees, again, they have a distribution to the mediators that facilitate the marketplace. And both DEX fees and lending interest fees don't have any split outs. Those Ezira coin funds, or those funds in whatever currency is used for these, which should be Ezira coin for all of these, so that Ezira coin gets distributed into network revenue. And this incoming network revenue stream is split out to the registrar of the account in terms of 7.5%. And if the account has a referrer, which it almost certainly will, so there's going to be an invitation code where you can input the referrer in order to get a free month of silver membership from the Ezira main account. So we'll be incentivizing people to use their invitation codes and refer new users. They will both be getting an Ezira membership of 1 month for free per referral invite. There'll be obviously terms and conditions, or not terms and conditions, but protocols in place to prevent abuse. So there will be some strings attached to that, but essentially, if you use an invitation code from a referrer, there will be a free silver membership for 1 month. Then 15% will be going to the governance address for each account, and this is set by default as an address that's specified by the account that creates it, and this address can be changed. So the registrar and the referrer are permanent, and the governance address can be changed. So Ezira accounts that are made on Ezira.io will be specifying the Ezira main account and the community account as the governance addresses by default, and all users will be able to change that accordingly to who they want to pay this 15% distribution to for governance. That might be charities, that might be national governments that make Ezira accounts, and it may well be the Ezira burn address if they want to contribute that value to the buy and burn to a greater extent. So that's the Ezira revenue graphic, and that makes it very visually clear where Ezira's incoming revenue is sourced from. So now what we'll do is we will go to any questions that anyone has about the topics that we just discussed there. So does anyone have any questions about what we just talked about? So the roadmap, the revenue graphic, and what I'll do is I'll just post them in the chat here so you all can see them. Okay, so here's all of the graphics for everybody to see. So these are all available on Ezira.io in the main home section and in the investment section. So this is a lot more visually clear about some of the important parts of the Ezira project for those of you who haven't read the white paper. So all this information is in the white paper, but this makes it nice and clear. Can you explain how buy and burn helps the Ezira users? That's a great question, Genki. So essentially a buy and burn is what happens when a cryptocurrency is destroyed. So for example, imagine if there was a company that had people pay for its products by provably destroying units of an asset that they issue. So in order to get a company's products, you have to destroy its asset, which makes that asset more scarce. So by removing some of it from the supply, it means that it was initially bought from the market and that it's no longer going to be sold on the market. So it's being destroyed. So in a simple way, it's a way to provide the value of that transaction to everyone who holds that asset by making it more scarce and more expensive by buying it up off the market first, so that increases the price when it's bought, and then when it's destroyed, it's not sold, so it's therefore removed from the supply, and the coin becomes more scarce. So by extension, when Ezira coin is issued, that is essentially paying a share of this incoming revenue to those users. So people who hold Ezira and people who hold Ezira coin benefit from the buy and burn. Because it is destroyed from the supply, which increases the price and increases the demand. So you have Antonio Montaliva, who is asking, what is the difference between Ezira and Ezira coin? That's a great question that we discussed last week. And the main answer is that there is a limited supply of Ezira, which is spelled with capital letters, and that limited supply is 10 million, and that's issued to preliminary, main, and annual ICO contributors held by a few reserve accounts as well. So that's essentially the ownership of the protocol represented by that, because that earns an ongoing revenue stream from the Ezira holder reward when those accounts are active. And Ezira coin is an asset that is separate from Ezira, but also holds voting power when it is vested into Ezira power. So Ezira coin is comparable to Steam in that it can be locked up and vested to hold voting power, and it earns Steam holder. It earns Ezira power interest essentially, so that when it's vested, it earns an interest rate depending on the amount that's vested. So both assets hold voting power, but Ezira coin is issued at a rate of 10 million per year every year, and that rate is constant and fixed. So essentially, Ezira coin is distributed to everyone who contributes to the protocol to represent revenue, and Ezira, the asset, represents ownership over the protocol. So they both hold voting power, and they have different ways of limiting access to the voting power and the earning potential of the assets. So Ezira is always liquid, but it takes 4 weeks to charge up its full earning potential and its voting potential. Whereas Ezira coin is the reverse. It can be immediately vested for full rewards and full voting power, but it takes at least 4 weeks to divest. So it depends whether you want to have an immediate voting power but be illiquid afterwards, or have a liquid voting power but have to wait in order to charge it up. So those are the two different assets that are used on the Ezira blockchain. So they're for two different purposes. One is for one has an open supply that can be adjusted with network demand, and the other one has a fixed supply that earns a return based on those who hold it. So I hope that answers your question. Does anyone have any other questions? You're welcome, Antonio. Anyone have any other questions today before we move on? Very good, thank you, John. Okay, in that case, we will move on to this week's weekly auction. So every week, the Ezira project has an auction of 10,000 Ezira that is distributed proportionally between all of the bidders to the Ezira account. This auction closes 1 hour after each Ezira Hangout, and the Ezira is distributed to the bidders a few hours, up to about 12 hours after the auction is closed. So we wait to make sure that there are no late bidders, but it tentatively closes 1 hour after each Ezira Hangout. So please get it in relatively shortly to be included in this week's auction. So over 500 BitUSD worth of value, and I'm pretty sure that number's gone up, has been contributed this week already. So take advantage of the last few opportunities to get Ezira before the preliminary ICO closes on September the 1st. So after September the 1st, there will be no more new Ezira issued, and the funding round will close. It will be closing on the 1st of September, which means that the only way to get Ezira after that point will be to buy it up off the market. So the Ezira supply will be fixed after the 1st of September, and all remaining Ezira on the Ezira main account will be sent back to the reserve pool, and whenever Ezira does competitions, we will be buying the Ezira back off of the market and distributing it like that. So you can now purchase Ezira below its current market price by sending BitShares or BitUSD to Ezira on BitShares, or there is also a Bitcoin and Ethereum address that will be displayed on the screen, and that will be also included in the YouTube video description and in the Telegram channel for Ezira after this hangout's finished. So to send Bitcoin or Ethereum, you can send it to the address that is on the screen at the moment, and that will be included for copy pasting purposes on the Discord, the Telegram, and on the YouTube video. So this week's weekly auction, we've had a few bids already. we've had some contributions from quite a few accounts. There's been our biggest bid so far has been Doog with 1,500 bit shares. Thank you, Doog. We've had Boney 1994 with 100 bit shares. We've had TBCA Time 1212 with 1,000 bit shares. So the bids are flowing in, and it's your opportunity to get some Ezira below its current market price by sending bit shares to the Ezira main account, or alternatively Bitcoin or Ethereum, which gets deposited into Bitcoin's account via Open Ledger. So next up, we'll go to the competition for this week. So this week's Twitter competition had people answering the question, who will be your first connection on Ezira and why? So we will decide the winner of that competition now. So in order to be valid, the entries had to be posted into the competition's Discord. And we've had quite a few entries here. Look at this. First post on Ezira. That was last week. First connection. So we have one from Antonio, one from Steam Dan, and one from Teresa Rod, and from Mariana. So let's take a look and see which one had the most likes and retweets. Okay, we have Mariana, who said, my first Ezira connection will be with a team of friends on Discord. Surely together we will invent great community projects. Fantastic, Mariana. Sort of dodging the question a little bit, but I'll allow it. A team of friends? Yeah, maybe it's too hard to pick just one. Next up, so that post got 161 engagements. And next up, we have Teresa, who said, my first Ezira connection will be with my Twitter friends La Divina Diva, La Perez, Perdomo, and Lyrical Man, and all my followers who find many benefits in this incredible social network. With 30 engagements. Thank you, Teresa. And next we have Daniel Vasquez. He says, my first Ezira connection will be Beyond Bitcoin Cash. Beyond Bitcoin Cash. Because it's a perfect way to empower and build up a decentralized community focusing on providing values, education, and quality content to everyone. With 13 engagements. And last but not least, we have Jesus Antonio, who says, my first Ezira connection will be with Dan Vell, because he has been teaching me about Ezira in the Hispanic community, and he is a very nice person. And it looks like we have a winner with 200 and 203 engagements. Yep, 203 if I'm reading that correctly. Yep, 203. That means this week's winner is Jesus Antonio, who was definitely in the Discord. There it is. Jesus Antonio is our winner for this week, with Antonio Montaliva as the BitShares address. Congratulations, Antonio, and he is here in Discord, so that increases the winnings potential. So first we'll need to work out 5% of the balance. So the prize is 200 Ezira plus 100 if present, and another 5% of the total balance. And yeah, that's what I thought. Antonio won last week, so this week he has 310 to be compounding onwards. So that's 310. So Antonio's winnings this week are 300 plus 0.05 times 310. Which brings his winnings to 315.50. 315.50, so that's an extra 15 0 from the multiplicative bonus there. So that's 315.50 to Antonio Montaliva. Congratulations, Antonio, winner of Twitter Competition 3. Competition 3. Very good. Congratulations, Antonio. Okay, so now we have the new competition. It's pretty similar to the last competition because these competitions have been very, very powerful for the Ezira project on Twitter. So we'll be moving in with a new competition this week. And it's no surprise that it is another Twitter competition. So number 4, Twitter competition number 4 is post a tweet answering the question, what is the first board you will create on Ezira and why? In one sentence. So on Ezira, boards are spelled using the caret name, the greater than symbol, like the sideways arrow first, and then their name is in capital case. So for example, if a board was called like this, they go sideways arrow and then capital case. So if there was a board called Ezira Users, it would look like that. And then that's essentially, when you write it like that, will render as a link to that board. Same as like when you type a tag. When you type a tag on most websites, it links to a search of that tag. Ezira will work very similarly, except with boards. So on Reddit, you might be familiar with an R notation or R Ezira like that. On Ezira, the board notation will be a sideways arrow, and that will link to that board. So that's in the technical manual. A little bit of stuff that'll be coming out into the application when it is created. So the first board that you would like to create is this week's Twitter question. So it can be any topic you want, and we'll see who can come up with some creative answers. So, and why is a good question to be asking. So, as usual, include the tags for hashtag Ezira and @Ezira Network, and include a link to the Ezira Telegram and Discord. And link your posts in the competitions Discord with your BitShares address to enter. And the tweet with the most likes and retweets on Twitter will win 200 Ezira plus 5% of their total Ezira holdings. It will be announced in next week's Hangout. And if the winner is present in next week's Hangout, like Antonio was this week, they will win a bonus 100 Ezira. The first valid entry, starting as of right now, will win 10 bonus Ezira when it is created. and it'll also be linked in the Ezira Hangout thread. So remember to include the caret notation, and if it's multiple words, it should be using capital case. So capital first letter, and then capital for each of the start of the word. Each of the start of the word letters. So that's pretty much the competition sorted out there. And last up this week, we'll have any general discussion. Does anyone have any questions or topics that they want to bring up for this week's general discussion? So any open questions that we have, and you can email me at harrison@ezira.io for any other queries, team role applications, proposals, or business matters. And you can join the Ezira Telegram channel at www.t.me/Ezira Network. You can also email me to get the template for applying to be a witness on the Ezira blockchain. And then you can make that post to the Steam blockchain for your witness proposal. So if you would like to be an Ezira witness, then it is a good idea to start campaigning to the community, to the holders of Ezira who will be voting for you. And it's also a good idea to get a bit of Ezira yourself so that you can have a bit of voting power at the start of the network. So with that said, we'll open the board up to some questions. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we talked about or the Ezira project in general? In that case, if no one has any questions, then we will wrap up this week's Ezira Hangout. So thank you all for everyone who is watching live on YouTube, and for everyone who enjoyed this week's Hangout, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Ezira YouTube channel for more videos about the Ezira project that come out in the future, and for these Hangouts every week to be broadcast live. If you're watching this, please consider sharing it with your network, getting the word out about the Ezira project. The Ezira project depends on all of us coming together to grow this network into the powerful force that we know it can be for freedom in this world. Because cryptocurrency is the most powerful step for freedom that we have had in several generations. It is a step bigger than the internet in many ways, because it allows us to, for the first time in human history, have scarcity of anything. Digitally enforced scarcity. We've got a technology that was not even predicted in Star Trek, for example. In Star Trek, they had, for example, gold-pressed latinum was the idea of Star Trek that was used by the Ferengi, used because it was scarce, because it couldn't be replicated. We have something that is more advanced than the most advanced mechanism of money designed in Star Trek right now. And I think that's amazing. So, I think we'll finish this week's Ezira Hangout. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next week for next week's Ezira Hangout number 19. So thank you all, and good night. And remember, together, we will build the next world. Thank you.